Hello everyone, it is Matt here from Scoop in Response, and today we are going to be going over a deck using Lathril, Blade of the Elves. So Lathril's a pretty sweet commander that came out with the previous commander product. Lathril reads as 2 black and a green, menace, legendary creature, elf noble. Whenever Lathril, Blade of the Elves, deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens. And then it has an activated ability for tap 10 untapped elves you control. Sorry, tap and tap 10. Each opponent loses 10 life and you gain 10 life. So yeah, really sweet, I guess, Elfball kind of commander with Lathril. You know, this deck was pretty easy to sort of put together a list. It's really just mono green with access to some cool, I guess, planeswalkers and a whole bunch more tutors and a few other bits and pieces. What I really like about having 2-color elf decks, I've played a lot of elves across every format imaginable, basically. What I really like about the 2-color elf decks is it has a whole lot more in the way of options than just your typical mono green elf ball. So I play a lot of Selvala and CDH, and you know, that's just your very bread and butter elf ball. We're going to be borrowing a lot of, I guess, bits and pieces from that kind of list. You know, there's a lot of dorks and a lot of elves, obviously, with a commander like this. But overall, you know, you've got the ability to put in some good tutors if you want. You've got the ability to run a cool, I guess, collection of enchantments if that's your thing, and you've got removal, which is probably the biggest factor when it comes to having something like this if you're going to be fighting over the board. So let's check out the list. For creatures, we have everything that you would typically imagine. So we've got your Arbor Elf, Birds of Paradise, Deathrite Shaman, Elves of Deep Shadow, Elvish Mystic, Finhorn Elves, Llanowar Elves, Kyrian Ranger, Wirewood Symbiote, all of those being just 1-drop mana dorks. Obviously, Deathrite Shaman's a little bit better than just a regular mana dork, but overall we've got a whole lot of turn 1 plays just from our creatures alone, so you should always have something to do on turn 1. For our 2-drops, we've got Bloom Tender, Dark Confidant, Elvish Visionary, Priest of Titania, Fauna Shaman, Elvish Warmaster, you know, more dorks with Bloom Tender, with Titania. We've got Card Draw with Dark Confidant and Elvish Visionary. We've got a little bit of board presence with Warmaster and Fauna Shaman for tutoring out those big cards. Elvish Archdruid, Eternal Witness, Imperious Perfect, Marwyn, Opposition Agent, Reclamation Sage, Shaman of the Pack, make our 3-drops. So we've got, I guess, Lords with Elvish and Imperious. Marwyn's obviously just a really good dork that gets bigger and bigger. Eternal Witness, just a great card overall. And Opposition Agent, because we're in black, so why not? The other cool thing, I think Shaman of the Pack is something that you sorely miss out on when you're playing a mono green elves list. Having access to black means that we can have a bit of I guess a bit of burst with Shaman of the Pack. So we've got Beast Whisperer, Canopy Tactician, Dwynen the Guiltleaf Dane. Man, some of these are hard to pronounce. And then rounding it out at the top, we've got Seedborn Muse, Wolverine Riders, and Craterhoof Behemoth. So yeah, a whole bunch of 4-drops for, you know, Card Draw with Beast Whisperer. Canopy Tactician is another Lord and a big mana dork, so pretty sweet card there. Dwynen is another Lord again, and you get to gain life for attacking elves, so really sweet card. That Seedborn Muse, we have a commander that likes to tap all of our dudes. So we want to be able to untap our permanents as often as we can, and Seedborn Muse is great for that. Wolverine Riders is a token generation machine every upkeep. So each upkeep, create a green 1/1 elf warrior creature token. So yeah, effectively each turn you get 1 life and you get a token. This is a insane card because it's on all 3 of your opponents and yours. So you play this and then you untap with your next turn with this on the board, and you'll have another 3 1/1s to go ham with. Craterhoof Behemoth rounds out the creatures. It's our finisher if we just can't get the job done with Lathril. So yeah, effectively it's just a bit of a haymaker at the end, and we've got a whole bunch of tutors, and we should be able to ramp pretty efficiently, so why not? Probably also worth mentioning as well that the Craterhoof does pump the Lathril, so that means you get to create more 1/1s, and it will also, you know, increase yeah, increase the 1/1, so you effectively get more 1/1s when it connects. So that's, you know, obviously very sweet. Marwyn also gets to benefit from this as well. Okay, moving on to spells. We have in sorceries, Glimpse of Nature, Green Sun Zenith, Demonic Tutor, Eldritch Evolution, and Finale of Devastation. So all of these are pretty obvious tutors, you know, most of these tutoring to the board. Glimpse of Nature just being a really solid card draw engine for 1 mana, so just I include this wherever I can in a green deck that's basically relying on creatures. For instance, we've got Crop Rotation, Nature's Claim, Noxious Revival, Vampiric Tutor, Veil of Summer, Vitalize, Worldly Tutor, Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, Court of Calling, Heroic Intervention, Benefactor's Draft, Deadly Rollick, Force of Vigor, Second Harvest, and Return to the Wild Speaker. So Crop Rotation is really just about getting our guys Cradle wherever we need to. We've got Artifact Enchantment Hate. We can return things from the graveyard at instant speed to put on the top of our library. If something gets removed, we can protect it. Vampiric Tutor, just another tutor. Veil for protection. Vitalize, just a really cheap untap, so it may be that you want to tap for a whole bunch of mana and then use this as a ritual to untap again and, you know, pump more mana into something, and it's really sweet. Or it may just be that you want to spend 1 mana to get another round of Lathril's activations. So Worldly Tutor, just another tutor, should make sense. Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, Deadly Rollick, all just really solid removal spells. Benefactor's Draft, untap all creatures until end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls blocks, draw a card. So this is an insane untap ability that also draws you cards. So just absolutely powerhouse in this type of list. Heroic Intervention for protection, Chord for, you know, a spell that you can, I guess, convoke with. So you get to, you know, use all of those little elf dorks and those elf tokens to get a big dork out. So really sweet. Force of Vigor, more Artifact and Enchantment Hate. Second Harvest, doubles the amount of tokens you control. Return of the Wild Speaker, you know, sometimes you want to use it as a pump spell, but most of the time it's going to be for drawing cards. So yeah, pretty well, I guess, very standard includes for all of those for the most part. I guess the really only spicy ones for that are Vitalize and Benefactor's Draft, you know, things that you wouldn't sort of see in every, I guess, green elf list. Yeah, moving on to artifacts and enchantments. So we have all of the rampy things that ramp: Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypt, Sol Ring, Arcane Signet, Golgari Signet. You know, those are our rocks, really sweet stuff there. 1000-Year Elixir, because we want to be able to untap and tap our creatures as soon as we can. And this can also be a bit of a ritual if we're tapping for a lot of mana with something like Marwyn or Titania, so really sweet there. Vanquish's Banner, you know, it's obviously going to be naming elves. It's a anthem effect for all of the elves, and it also lets us draw a card every time we cast a creature spell of that type. The only other artifact we've got, and you'll see it here separate to the rest, Whisper Silk Cloak. Equipped creature is unblockable and has Shroud. So we care about our commander getting through, and sometimes Menace just isn't going to be good enough. So we want to give it unblockable where we can. We're also running Rogue's Passage as well to let us do that using that land as well. With enchantments, we have Carpet of Flowers, Utopia Sprawl, Wild Growth, Prowess of the Fair, Quest for Renewal, Sylvan Library, Gaia's Anthem, Awakening, and Guardian Project. So, rampy things that ramp. Carpet of Flowers, Utopia Sprawl, Wild Growth, should make sense there. Prowess of the Fair is pretty spicy, so it's a reasonably new card. Whenever another non-token elf is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you may create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. So, creates more tokens for us to double, which is sweet, but this is kind of a, you know, board wipe removal. It just, protection rather, board wipe protection. Just means that we aren't completely resetting if someone casts a Damnation or a Wrath of God, so we're pretty happy with that. Quest for Renewal. Whenever a creature you control becomes tapped, you may put a quest counter on Quest for Renewal. As long as there are 4 or more quest counters on Quest for Renewal, untap all creatures you control during each other player's untap step. So this is just another Seedborn Muse. Really sweet card. For the life of me, I can't actually work out why I haven't thought to put this in lists before, because a 2-mana Seedborn Muse for the most part, in an elf deck is just absolutely nuts. I guess I was originally playing elf decks and I randomly got given an Earthcraft very early on with my Magic career, so I didn't notice things like Cryptolith Rite or Quest for Renewal because I was playing with a Seedborn Muse and a Earthcraft. So yeah, never really thought that there might be extra versions of those kinds of cards. But here we are, Quest for Renewal. Absolutely gas card. Totally took me by surprise when I was thinking about this. Sylvan Library is extra card draw, enough said with that. Gaea's Anthem, just a very cheap Anthem effect. Just a sweet card. Enchantment removal's way more, I guess, sticky than other creatures, so we're pretty happy about this overall. Then we've got Awakening. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, untap all creatures and lands. So yeah, just another Seedborn Muse. This is pretty well kill on sight, so you don't expect that to sort of stay there for too long. I just think it's too good to not include for a list like this. Guardian Project is just a sweet card draw. Essentially, that's all we care about. It's the same as Beast Whisperer, really solid. Rounding out, I guess, all of the extras and bits and pieces, we have a Tyvar Kell. Elves you control have tap, add a black, so that's pretty sweet. It's a 4-drop. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to one target elf, untap it, it gains Death Touch. We're using that as a ritual most of the time. Get to create tokens, that's really sweet. And then we get an emblem when it cares about us casting elf spells. Gains haste, and you draw 2 cards whenever you cast one, so that's pretty awesome. Vraska, Golgari Queen. You may sacrifice another permanent. If you do, gain 1 life and draw a card. That's what we pretty well care about. It's going to be used on our dorks where we want more card draw, but we can also use it to destroy non-land permanents with converted mana cost 3 or less. So it's an abrupt decay kind of on a stick. The emblem, I don't think it's ever going to happen. We won't even bother. And running out the final cards for the deck, we have lands. So this is an expensive deck. I always leave the Moxfield links in the description. The deck is very expensive. I'm not going to shy away from that. It's about $2,500 US. It's mostly the land base. You know, we're running a Gaea's Cradle. Excuse me. We've got Cavern of Souls, Ancient Tombs, all the fetches, and a Bayou. It's not a cheap list. It's really not. But if you cut most of these and just run a modest land base, it's going to remove 90% of the value for the actual deck, and it'll just bring it down so considerably. I've actually got a budget version of the list, which I will leave in the description as well, that comes in at $150, and it still manages to retain the majority of what this deck can actually do. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we'll go through the lands. So we've got Ancient Tomb, Bayou, we've got all of the fetch lands that we need. Command Tower, City of Brass, Cavern, naming Elf obviously, Exotic Orchid, pretty sweet I think overall. Forbidden Orchid, you get to give your opponents some tokens, doesn't really matter in our list. Gemstone Caverns for a bit of ramp, Mana Confluence for a bit more rainbow, Nurturing Peatlands to draw a card every now and again, Phyrexian Tower if we want to tap for 2, Rogue's Passage to give things unblockable, particularly our commander. We've got a Urborg just for the extra swampies, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Undergrowth Stadium, I guess, is the other one, and then the rest is basics and fetch lands. So yeah, the list itself, I think, is, as I mentioned right at the start of the video, I think it's a pretty easy build. I don't think you're really, I guess, breaking any boundaries when it comes to creating an Elfball list. But I think that this is a really modest commander that, you know, you can have a lot of fun with, and essentially just build a, you know, an unashamed Elfball list. I think it's a great list overall. Thank you so much for looking at the video, and I really appreciate you checking it all out. If you have enjoyed the content, would love a subscribe and a like where you can. If you're leaving me a comment, you know, I reply to everyone in the comments. And yeah, anyone who wants to make a request or a recommendation for a new commander that I'm going to be looking at soon, leave it in the comments and I will definitely add it to the list. We've got coming up on the channel soon, I will be looking at Yorion as a bit of a weird build. I don't think I've seen a list like this for Yorion before. And I'm also going to be looking at a list that I put together almost a year ago. It was one of my very first commander deck techs, which was Lathril, where I built a light stacks and I guess a bit of a combo type list with Protean Hulk. Yeah, thanks for checking out the channel. If it's your first or you've been watching for quite a while, really appreciate it, and I shall see you next time. Bye for now.